Today is the 8th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Cycle C. The book of Sirach is considered one of the conventional wisdom books in the Old Testament, along with Proverbs, Psalms, Song of Songs, and Ecclesiastes. Conventional wisdom follows our logic and experience. The book of Job and many of Jesus' teachings are called unconventional wisdom literature. Why? Because in the book of Job, it is why bad things happen to a good man. And Jesus calls to love our enemies, go against our basic instincts. Sirach tells us to praise no one until you have heard him speak. That is, do not judge solely from appearances. He says, you may believe you have bought the finest wheat until you put it in a sieve and shake it, and the husk appears. Beautiful clay artifacts may be placed in the potter's oven, but when it is taken out, it may be cracked or broken. The fruit of one's speech may disclose the bent in one's mind, the corrupt nature within a person. The fruit of a tree shows the care it has received. The deeds of a person is dependent on the type of formation he had received. The presence of a family structure that teaches values, especially Christian values, in the home is essential to form upright young women and men. The lack of this structure results in delinquents, whether as teens or as adults. Presently, the abortionist can terminate a baby up to the date of his or her birth. However, some states like Texas and Missouri have introduced restrictions to restrict this practice. There are some persons who are promoting killing the baby after they are born. They believe that a woman should be able to decide, like in Holland, this is not something new in the world, to kill a child after his or her, or within his or her 3 months of life, provided the baby has a birth defect. The problem is, what is a birth defect? Something minor, something major. It's vague. We have become a culture of death and not of life. St. Paul speaks of immortality covering or clothing our mortality, which is a reference to the resurrection. Because there is life beyond this world, human death has lost its sting. Because of our belief in the resurrection, do not be afraid of death. Do not be afraid to preach the gospel, even if it is unpopular. Do not be afraid of persecution. Even if they kill you, death is not an end, but a new beginning. Death has lost its sting. In the gospel, Jesus is addressing his disciples. Beware of false prophets. Teachers like the Pharisees are the blind leading the blind. While no disciple can become greater than his master, Jesus himself, however fully trained, he can become just like his teacher. Avoid judging others. The context here is publicly criticizing and condemning others. The object of correction is to teach the person how to become better rather than to humiliate the person. Avoid hypocrisy. Using the Semitic hyperboles, Jesus tells us that when our sins are far greater than those whose sins we're trying to correct, it is like obsessing about a splinter in someone's eye, when we have a wooden beam in our eye, which we of course ignore. We have to tend to our own faults before addressing the faults of others. Finally, we have to measure our spiritual progress. Do our lives mirror the good tree that produces good fruit? In Judeo-Christian sense, good fruit are acts of loving kindness. So the question becomes, can you name your recent good fruits you have produced?